All right, I want to ask you about two or three legal aspects of this specific case that's been much in the news, where two people were apparently killed by the Pentagon, by drones, in a second tap, a second strike after the first strike largely destroyed the craft and rendered them no threat whatsoever. Now, first question is this. No one in the Pentagon in this day and age would do anything like that without a legal opinion, right? Some lawyer somewhere in the Pentagon or the Justice Department or the NSC, some lawyer or probably multiple lawyers said, yeah, this is legally justified. Doesn't that end it? If a lawyer working for the government says this is legal, doesn't that on some level make it a de facto legal operation? And we shouldn't be looking at the admiral who the White House says made the decision or the Secretary of Defense. Shouldn't it all be on the lawyer?
Oh, okay, so we're jumping over the question for the moment of whether it's actually legal. We're just asking if the OLC issued an opinion.
Well, I'm approaching that key question from a very specific point of view, which is, isn't there a case to be made that if the lawyer whose job it is to say this is legal or not, it's consistent with international law and American law, if the lawyer says it is, doesn't that for some people settle it?
Yeah, folks are making this exact argument, Mark. You're exactly right. So in fact, there's an OLC, that's Office of Legal Counsel. That's a White House office opinion from some years ago saying, yeah, if we write an opinion saying that something's legal, you can't go after any of the officers for doing it. Well, I'll tell you, my opinion is that opinion is legally of no consequence. No, the Office of Legal Counsel cannot legalize war crimes. They can try, but they can't do it. Now, what the president has, as you know, is the pardoning power. So the president can pardon these people, but the Office of Legal Counsel writes some opinion. They cannot legalize through that opinion an atrocity, a war crime, whatever you're going to call it. So folks are making that argument, and I don't believe it, especially nowadays, Mark, as I'm sure you understand, when the Office of Legal Counsel is getting merged with, the White House. Like it's not serving as much of an independent, legal watchdog role as arguably it did in the past.
Right. But Jed, if I'm Admiral Bradley or I'm Pete Hegseth, I'm not saying, well, the president can pardon me if I ever get indicted by the Trump Justice Department. Unlikely to happen. What I'm saying is the lawyer said this was okay. So to the extent anybody has a problem with the international or American legality of this, take it up with the lawyer.
Well, first of all, Mark, I don't know if we're going totally hypothetical here. I doubt very much that the Office of Legal Counsel opinion, which is classified, so I haven't read it, I don't have access to it. I doubt very much that it says, and you can deliberately kill any survivors who are floating in the water, clinging to the wreckage. I strongly doubt it says that. I doubt very much that there's a legal opinion because there is 100 years, more than that, of precedent saying that's the one thing you can't do. You shoot a boat, okay, then there's survivors floating in the water, you kill them, that's murder. So I don't believe the opinion says it.
Okay, so let's drill down on that specific, on stipulating we have incomplete facts. Isn't it possible that the second tap, the second strike, was meant to eliminate the threat of anyone seizing the cargo, or that these guys would somehow revive themselves and pose some harm to the United States? In other words, if the intent was not to kill these two shipwrecked people, but simply to finish the mission, and the mission was render this craft and its cargo no threat to the United States, wouldn't that be justified?
You are asking exactly the right question. That's the question everybody's wondering about right now. We don't know the exact facts. You got to remember the Washington Post, that when it breaks a story, what the Post alleges is that Mitchell deliberately ordered an attack to kill the survivors, allegedly in compliance with an order that had been given to him by Hegseth saying, kill everybody on board. That's what the Post reported. Right. If you accept that story, if it's true, and we don't know if it is, but if you accept that story, that what happened was Mitchell saw the two survivors clinging to the wreckage, and he had been told by Hegseth, you got to kill everybody on board. So he specifically orders a strike to kill those guys. That's a war crime. That's murder. Now, what I think might have happened, and what now people in the administration are saying happened, is what you're saying. No. What Mitchell did was he ordered a second strike to take out the boat. The boat's still carrying the cargo. He took out the boat. It was a collateral damage consequence that the people floating in the water killed. That would be, legally speaking, a completely different story. And that would, involve, the issue of proportionality and so forth. You remember Obama when he was president, he dropped all these drone bombs on what the United States had determined to be enemy combatants, terrorists, and he killed lots of people standing around. I mean, and you know,
including an American.
Including man, we apologize, sorry, but we were bombing legitimate targets, and yeah, it killed some people, and a lot of folks were upset about that. But that happens in war if you're attacking a legitimate target, and it so happens that it kills some people. You can make legal arguments for that. Happens all the time in war. So the big question is whether what the Post reported is correct, or whether a different set of facts like you're suggesting is correct.
Right. So so for a normal person, not a lawyer, but a normal person, just kidding. You got, on the one hand, we got to keep drugs out of the United States. It's gone on too long. And we've already gotten a little bit pregnant because the president's saying, I can, without getting congressional authorization, I can go kill people on the seas in the Caribbean, right? Some people are unhappy about that, but there's no political move by Congress to stop that. At least there hasn't been. There's been some concerns, but the president's getting away with it and doing it. So then I say, well, all you're saying is he could have killed those two guys the first time. The first drone attack happened to not kill them, so now he's killing them the second time. Doesn't that seem like a legal nicety? What's the harm to the United States to finish the job, which could have happened in the first strike, except those guys momentarily lucked out? Where's the principle? What's the principle that's being violated that does harm to America?
I know the question you're asking is fascinating. It's like, it's almost a question about what we call the laws of war. It's like, give me a break, the laws of war. It's all legal technicalities, it's all BS. And
that's, just sorry to interrupt, but that's what Pete Hegseth in the past has said. He said, forget all this legal nicety stuff. We're in a war. When we're in a war, we're going to win the war. We're going to use, as his favorite word, lethality. So again, I just say, you said that this was murder. Under the facts as we understand them when you wrote this week. If in fact they killed these two people purposely, even though they were shipwrecked, that does violate international law. But what some normal Americans might say is, why is that a principle? Why is it a principle? These guys, the president decided they were drug runners. They tried to kill them. They failed, and then they finished the job. What's the harm? The positive is two guys who the president has deemed drug runners are killed. What's the harm to America for violating that international law that you can't kill people who are shipwrecked like that?
Well, there's two answers to that question. Here they are. First, since Abraham Lincoln and throughout the 20th century, there has been, and Lincoln, believe it or not, was one of the first and leading figures in this to lay down some laws of war. And they include, for example, you take some prisoners, you can't then just take a gun and blow their heads off. And why is that? Well, first, it's a matter of principle. You just can't do it, even if you're in wartime. You got your prisoners, you can't shoot everybody. There are lines you can't cross. And that's been an idea in the laws of war for long. And guess what? Shooting prisoners can be militarily very useful. Those guys can escape.
Yeah.
Those guys stuff can happen. Second World War. German U-boat commanders, they were hitting Allied, submarines, hitting Allied merchant ships. Then they would come up, they see some survivors floating in the water, they'd machine gun them and kill them. We took those U-boat commanders, one of them especially, this guy Heinz Eck, tried at Nuremberg, executed for that act, because, the idea was, hey, there are lines you can't cross, and shooting the survivors from the shipwreck were floating in the water.
Before you move to the second one. No, but
you asked about U.S. interests. I'm just going to finish it. So one is like a matter of principle, lines you can't cross. The other one is the laws of war are reciprocal. Like, that's the idea is, hey, the next time we're in a war with somebody and they start shooting our prisoners, they just take the gun, God knows, we're in some war with Russia. They capture some prisoners and they just shoot them in the head. If we kill other people's prisoners, they're going to kill ours. Now, I know folks are going to say, oh, well, the terrorists don't care. And the terrorists are never going to abide by these laws. And, maybe. But that's part of the idea is the hope that your prisoners won't be treated to that same level of atrocity, too.
And this may sound like as naive as a freshman at Yale who somehow snuck into auditing your law class.
Doubt it.
Do you ever let undergraduates into your law classes?
Yeah, every now and then.
Okay. So what I'd say the first point is, this is a war, man. And you say it violates a principle. Well, that's one principle. Don't shoot prisoners. right? But another principle is if you're at a war, win the war. The president's decided we're at war with these narco terrorists, and he's killing them. Like he's doing it as deterrence. He's doing it for interdiction. So why not kill these other two guys? This is a war. And you say, well, there's a
Mark,
long-standing principle, but what's the principle based on?
Do you think, I mean, I hate to drag you into this, you don't want to talk about it, brother, but do you think October 7th was wrong? Those people think they're in a war with Israel. So are they allowed to drop in and kill everybody they see? Civilians, women, children. Are they allowed to bayonet kids because they think that, because they say we're in a war, we can do anything we want because it's a war, it's going to help us win? Answer: for hundreds of years, no. There's stuff you can't do.
Yeah.
And shooting folks floating in the water is supposed to be one of them. Legally speaking, that principle's been around for 200 years.
Yeah. Just to be clear, I'm not taking a position on it. I agree with you, frankly, but I just know there are tens of millions of Americans who look at this and say, like, these are narco terrorists. The president's decided, the commander in chief's decided we're at war with narco terrorists. We're not gonna have legal niceties. We're not gonna play by these rules. And I know that that's what the president's supporters believe in Congress also. Like, there's no joke. And I guess for me, their strongest argument is once you say he can go without any due process, without any declaration of war by Congress, he can go murder people in the Caribbean indiscriminately, really, that now we're just arguing about like on the margins of what's okay, because he has no idea who's on those boats. I mean, maybe with intelligence they have some idea, but there's certainly no due process, and there's certainly no declaration of war, and they're not warships. They're merchant vessels selling illegal products that are dangerous. So it's not like they can defend themselves anyway, right? It's not. They don't have machine guns on those vessels.
Not that we know.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm sure, Mark, you agree, and I'm sure even the folks who are taking the position that you're talking about would agree. The president cannot just drop bombs on schools and hospitals in Venezuela. Now, why is that? Because there are supposed to be rules, principles, lines that you draw. Even when you're at war, there's some stuff you can't do. And if you're saying, hey, look, folks out there are saying, what's the deal with the law? Forget the law. These are bad people. Well, there's a difference between saying these are bad people and let's forget the law. If you say let's forget the law, then you're saying, okay, yeah, he can go bomb anybody he wants in Venezuela. And Mark, I'm sure that you and I are not going to go anywhere near that far. And I doubt many, other folks taking your position would go that far. And what they'd have to say at a certain point is, yeah, that's wrong. That move is wrong. And so the law has to draw lines, and some people are going to agree and disagree with where the lines are drawn, but for hundreds of years, the line has been you can't deliberately shoot folks floating in the water.
Right. I guess one distinction in the hypothetical you raised is civilians, right? These aren't kids in a school or people in a hospital or in an office building, but they're not military. But the president's basically deemed them the equivalent of military under the law. If you were a lawyer in the government and you were asked to approve this specific operation, the second tap in this case, what would you have said if you were asked to approve it?
I would not say make the argument you're making now, that it's fine to kill shipwrecked people who are floating in the water. That's going to lose. That's against the law. That's murder. What I would say is we weren't doing that. We were taking the boat out. We've all agreed that that the boat's a legitimate target. And we had to finish the job, take that boat out and sink all the fentanyl or whatever supposedly was on that boat. We're allowed to take a second shot at that boat. It's not a double tap at the guys. It's a double tap. It's not even a double tap. It's a second strike at the boat.
So just to clarify, if you were in the Situation Room and you were the lawyer on call and they said, there are two guys there, they're defenseless, but the ship's still there and the mission's to get rid of that ship and the cargo, we're going to take out the ship. Those guys are going to die, but our purpose is to take out the ship and the cargo. You'd approve that?
That's essentially the decision that has already been made by those lawyers when they first say you can take out that ship with the 11 people on it. So I would ask if I'm a lawyer, I would ask very specifically, you're sure that the boat is still there and there's a reasonable chance it's got the cargo on it? And they say, yeah, the boat's still there. We can see it. The boat's there. Yeah. Then on the same grounds that I authorized, that I said it was legal to strike them in the first place, I would say, yeah, you can take a shot at that boat. That's right.
If you're a homeowner in America, you need to listen to this. The FBI is warning about a type of real estate fraud on the rise called title theft, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on just a single document, then use a fake notary stamp and file the document with the county. Just like that, on record, they own your home. Using your ownership, they can take out loans against your equity or even sell your property. And you won't know about any of this until foreclosure or collection notices show up in the mail. That's why I'm partnering with Home Title Lock, so you can protect your equity and find out today, right now, if you're already a victim. Use my promo code MARK at HometitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title records, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud does occur, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix it. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code MARK.